Miami Dolphins fans. Today we're just going to be going over something that I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting from what's going down right now. I know everybody's down, so I'm going to try and be the optimistic Dolphins YouTuber in talking about what we can actually see and the take that you can actually have going for the rest of the season. And one of the things that I really want to talk about today is Darren Waller. I think a lot of people were kind of negative of Darren Waller because he wasn't playing. And to be honest, I didn't know if he was going to play. So I was very anxious about seeing him on the field. But now that it's been confirmed that he's going to play, one of the things that I really do want to talk about that I think a lot of people are not taking notice of, because, some people are going to sit there and people hate Tua. It's just the way that it's going to go. What I see with how things went on the Bills game, and pretty much just one of the things that I want to really key in on, because Kurt Warner's been going crazy with this popcorn route tree, that the play that Tua threw the interception was on. And something that he showed me was during the Patriots game, Hunter Henry, he's pretty much I don't know if I call him premier, but he's close to a premier tight end. He's been consistent for a very long time. What he ends up doing is he ends up running towards the middle linebacker on that popcorn style of play, and then moves away and runs his corner route, which the linebacker completely bites on it and frees up, I think it was, Jacoby Myers, or can't remember the wide receiver for New England, but pretty much frees him up to be wide open for that hitch play. And one of the things that a lot of people, I think, are not getting, because as a Dolphin fan base, we want to, believe in the project player and all that. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. No one cares that Tanner Connor's on the field. Nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the key there, is that play kind of, when you look at that play, not only did Tanner Connor not run at the middle linebacker, but he actually ran almost kind of towards Jalen Waddle, which pretty much pulled the linebacker towards Jalen Waddle on that play. In my opinion, the more that Kurt Warner breaks it down, the more I see Tanner Connor. I mean, it was basically like, if you look at the route tree, Jalen Waddle is running up, and Connor is kind of rubbing off of him going up. So pretty much pulled the linebacker right towards Jalen Waddle, which is, to me, as Kurt Warner breaks it down, because I'm going to take a Hall of Fame quarterback's advice more than, Dolphins YouTubers. He ran the complete wrong way. He just completely destroyed that play. And honestly, again, not only did he go towards Waddle, but no one cares about Tanner Connor. No one gives a crap that he's running down the field. You're pretty much going to say, the safety's bigger than him and faster than him. Whatever, just let him go. They're not going to throw to him. But and that's just a pinpoint play. Darren Waller brings a different dynamic to this team. Now, he's going to be on a snap count. But, again, Darren Waller is 4 or 5 inches taller than Tanner Connor. He's probably 20 pounds bigger than Tanner Connor, and probably, I would say, faster than Tanner Connor. I mean, Tanner Connor's decently fast, but Darren Waller is probably a .10 faster than than Tanner Connor. What Darren Waller is going to bring to this offense is definitely going to be key in these next couple games, because it's a completely different dynamic, even more so than when we had Jonnu Smith. And when you look back at his Raiders time, again, we forget the perfect storm. When he was with the Raiders, he was with Frank Smith, and he had a stellar year. Frank Smith knows how to use him, and pretty much made him have that 1,200-yard, 11 touchdown season, and then he had another one after that. And honestly, what I'm going to see right here, so 6'6", 238 pounds. That season that I'm talking about is 2019, 2020. So only 3 years removed from that type of season. And what I'm going to really speculate is the way that we utilized Jonnu Smith last season. I think what we're going to do a lot more is, which we have been doing a pretty decent amount, is we're going to have 12 personnel. But what the key is going to be here with Darren Waller is it gives you a big threat that the defense has to account for. Whereas when you have Julian Hill and Tanner Conner, they're really not accounting for these guys. They're not sitting there like, it's not a mean thing to say, but they're just not accounting for those guys. They don't really care because they know those guys aren't really going to make plays. They've seen what they've got. They know where they're at. It's just the reality of the situation. But when you're lining up in 12 personnel and you have Darren Waller as one of those tight ends, now you kind of have to bite on the play action. You kind of have to account for what Darren Waller is going to do, because Darren Waller can run down the field faster than Jonnu could. And, now you have another playmaker that gives you a different style. It gives Tua that 6'6" big body guy that he can just throw the ball up to. And I think what we saw with Tyreek Hill in the Bills game, when, I'm going to be fully honest with you, it's like we all try and blame Tua, but a lot of people have mistakes. And one of them was Tyreek Hill, where there was a ball. Yeah, it was underthrown, and it is what it is. He was told to do that. I think Tua right now, after that hip situation going into the end of last year, I don't know what happened to his hip, but he just seems to have less velocity on the ball, which sucks. But that ball hit Tyreek Hill right in the hands 50 yards down the field. And I'm sorry, we want to blame Tua, and it's warranted. He's a $50 million quarterback, but Tyreek Hill's a $50 million wide receiver. So a ball that hits you in the hands like that, you got to come down with it. That play, he missed that. We end up punting on that drive, whereas if he catches that, we're at the 25-yard line, and we're driving in the red zone again. And I think at that point, we were driving to take the lead. We ended up punting. So what that's going to bring to the Miami Dolphin offense, Darren Waller, is that big body receiver where Tua doesn't have to be so perfect on every throw. He can sit there and just, if the play is breaking down, if the right side of the line is not blocking like they typically haven't, he can just throw the ball up, and he can hope that Darren Waller can catch. Because there's been a lot of plays where, Tua's misthrown some things, but if you have someone that's like 6'2", 6'1", and they can jump, they're catching that ball, whereas I don't think people fully realize how difficult it is to all the time have to be perfect with all your throws. It's like, I'm sorry to tell you, but none of the quarterbacks do that. You can sit there and tell me all you want that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, now Josh Allen I think is a stud, but they mess up throws sometimes. But they have, a Keon Coleman, or they have, a Mark Andrews, or somebody along the lines that can sit there and jump up and go get it. Or a Rashad Bateman, or who does Patrick Mahomes has? Nobody. Nobody. They have somebody that can go up and make that catch. And Tua doesn't. He really doesn't. He's never had that guy. And this is the first time in Tua's career that he's going to have a guy that, if the play breaks down, you look at Darren Waller, it doesn't have to be a perfect throw right on the numbers. He can just throw it up like he used to have with Gesicki and just either let Darren Waller come down with it or nobody come down with it. And that is so key. I think, Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, but I think a lot of the time it helps him out because Joe Burrow throws a lot of interceptions. It helps him out to have two 6'4" wide receivers, 6'3", 6'4". I'm averaging them because it's 6'5" and 6'3", and the medium is 6'4". It helps to come down with it, to have a receiver that you can just throw the ball up to if the play breaks down, and he'll make a play. Whereas with Tyreek Hill, yes, if you get him the ball while he's running in stride, he's going to make a play. And he does that fantastically, and he saved our butts a lot of times last year. But throwing the ball up to Tyreek Hill, he just can't do it. And it helps not only in a play like that, but it also helps in the red zone where you don't have to be perfectly accurate with the ball. You can sit there, and if Waddle and Tyreek Hill are covered and you have Darren Waller, you could just take a shot and throw it up, throw it up on a fade or something like that and let Darren Waller come down with it. It gives you a different dynamic, and I think that's what's going to really envelop himself. I want to see the snap count that they're going to have for him coming into Monday, but I do think that this is going to change the offense a lot. I think Ollie Gordon showcased that he is a very talented back, and I think he needs to get more touches. I think we're going to be running up the gut a little more. I think we're going to be incorporating, hopefully, play action a little bit more. And I think Darren Waller is going to give you a completely different dynamic when it comes to the passing game, because he's that big receiver that we needed, or that Tua needed, And again, I'm not trying to alleviate blame on Tua. I think the last game he played pretty good until that last play. I mean, this is where, a fan base, I think a lot of fans, they just get so down because of one play, and they forget the entire game where, like, dude, I don't know about you, now that Kurt Warner broke it down, and I see that it's not just a stupid play, it was like the design thing, and it was just a whole mess up. Tua, when you look at the Bills game, played really well. Like, he was avoiding defenders. He was playing very well. He was going back and forth with Josh Allen. It's just unfortunate that that play was probably the worst play call for that moment in time, and Tanner Conner ran the worst route at that moment in time, and the defense had studied that route and knew exactly what we were doing. So it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and yes, Tua made a bad decision on the play too. You know what I'm saying? It's just unfortunate. But the entire game, he played very well. If Tua plays like that every game, which I know we've talked about, we can win a lot of games. He was doing his thing. He was evading defenders. Like, it's so crazy to me where people are still coming up with, like, Tua can't run away from defenders. Tua can't, scramble out of the pocket or anything. When he clearly showed that again, the Buffalo Bills game, there was like 4 or 5 instances where he shook a defender out of his shoes and made a play. So, again, Darren Waller is going to bring a different dynamic to this team, and I think he's the key to unlocking this offense and giving a little bit of that, mid, high, low contradiction for the defense, so that we can get a lot more open receivers. And I think if Mike McDaniel calls the plays like he was calling against Buffalo, I think we have a shot. I think a lot of people are down on the Dolphins right now, but it's funny that football, people get so emotional about it, and it's like, we're down right now, and then if we go, like we did back 3 years ago, we go on like an 8-win streak, people are going to be like, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl. It's like, fans are very emotional. Again, if they prove you wrong and the Jets, they stink it up, then yeah, of course, it is what it is. But if they don't, and they start doing stuff, I think there's a lot of weapons on this team. I think we can definitely formulate an offense that can compete. So we'll see what happens. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about Darren Waller? Do you think he's going to do anything, or do you think he's just going to be a dud? Let me know. Praise God, love God. He's great all the time. Love you all. Fins up. Peace.